session, and half or more of our work session is devoted to a legislative update from our state representative and former Mayor Mark Gamba.
Hey, everybody. Well, it's all that. Okay, we can leave. Yeah, it's like a lot of I'm doing a couple of constitutional copies a month, and they always end up being a little bit of fun because it's just, I try and be really straight with everyone about where we're at and what's going on and why it's the way it is. Mostly not good news. So, we can do, basically this session is going to be, the big thing is going to be the disconnect. So, I don't know if you know this, but our income tax system is basically a carbon copy of whatever the feds do, we do. Okay? So when we did HB1, we did all those huge tax cuts for the millionaires and the billionaires. That also affects our state because the same rules, all that applies. Last year, long session, the House passed a bill that would have disconnected us, would have locked us to the previous year's system. It did not pass in the Senate. Basically, it didn't get out of committee in the Senate. So we're going to take another run at that because we have to disconnect to the greatest degree possible. I'm all for a complete disconnect. I know that the sound of not paying taxes on overtime or tips sounds really good, but if you actually read the bill, it's not going to help those people much. There's very small windows, there's limits, there's all these things. So even that part of it is kind of BS. It's just to sell it to people. So I'd be fine with a complete disconnect. That is not what's going to happen. We're going to be cherry picking pieces to disconnect. And early indications are not awesome.
For getting
it disconnected as it should be. The less disconnected we are, the more cuts we're going to have to make.
And so
the less disconnect, sorry,
The more connected we are to the federal tax laws, the more we're going to have to cut at the state level.
And it can't be retroactive to last year, can it? So we're going to have that year anyway.
Yeah, so no matter what we do this year is,
yeah.
And the question is, what will next year be like? And that's why the disconnect is really critical. So it's going to be one of the top things that we do.
What was the bill number last session? Do you remember?
I can't even remember my bill. I think there's going to be a lot of conversation about transportation because there's obviously signatures to put the recall or the referendum on the ballot, and the polling says it. Which means that, ODOT will not have the money to keep people employed. Money that trickles down to cities and counties.
So they have so far avoided.
Transit agencies.
They've so far avoided the 500 layoffs or whatever it was the governor was
That's
going to
coming.
do. That's coming.
There is some layoffs coming. However, they're looking at some ideas to try and maintain as much of the staff as they can. Not surprisingly, a lot of people are finding their jobs because why would you wait around to get laid off? So as soon as they got the signatures, we're losing a lot of people. It's just not going to bode well for anything, plowing roads, striping, repairing parts of the highway that falls into the ocean, whatever. There's an idea of how to keep ODOT functioning. And then we'll have to conduct the 27 cities. Part of what I think all of our job is to help people understand that despite the noise that the Republicans are making about how inefficient ODOT is, they're certainly no more inefficient than all of the dots are. Whether they be state or county or whatever, they're big organizations, it's complex stuff, it's a lot of people, it's be super efficient. That's not the problem. The problem is that we're underfunded. We have been underfunded for decades. Back when they set the gas tax, it was sufficient. We have very rarely increased it, and always not enough to keep up with just inflation. Just inflation. Back in 2017, when they passed a little bit of increase that they did then, they knew that they needed to increase it 70 cents just to catch up to inflation, and they increased it a dime. And then they gave ODOT a whole bunch of projects to do. And then everyone wondered why ODOT was failing. So I think it's the job of leaders in our community to help people understand that yes, times are tough. Yes, things are expensive. They're also expensive for agencies, right? The same inflation that we all see in the grocery store is the inflation that the agencies experience, right? You're trying to buy asphalt, you're trying to buy steel, you're trying to buy all this concrete, all the things. Actually, inflation on construction has been going up 15% year over year since about 2010. So, I mean, it's part of why they look inept, because, we talk about a big project like the Rose Quarter. We say, okay, it's going to be $400 million. 10 years later, we're going, okay, we need to do the Rose Quarter. Why is it 150% more than it was last time? That's called inflation. In years at 15% year over year, that's 150% more. So we have to help people understand that if we would like our system to continue to function, not have bridges fall into the river and things like that, we are going to have to raise revenue for our transportation system. Full stop. So that brings me to one of the two bills I'm running this session, which is sort of a first step towards trying to make the maintenance and preservation of our system to behave more like a utility. So what I'm asking ODOT to do in this bill is work with cities and counties, come up with a set of criteria what we want our system to look like. Paving index for the interstates, paving index for non-interstate highways, for collectors, for utilities, for neighborhood streets, right? All the way up and down. What's our standard that we want to hit? How often do we want to restripe? How often should we replace bridges? Okay. What does that cost a year to do? The second data point is how many miles a year are we driving? That's a state. All the people in the state driving. One into the other, and you know what the road user charge should be as a utility. The beauty of that, it's a multi-step process. First part is just establishing the database. The second part will be in 27, which will be setting up a road use or charge program. And ideally creating a schedule that decides who goes into the RUC at what point. If we can get that all to happen, then we won't have to continue to have these fights every 4 or 5 years about increasing the gas tax. Because it'll just be every 2 years, ODOT will come out, this is what it's currently costing us to keep the system at this level, divided by this is how many miles we drove, okay, the new RUC charge is this. Every 2 years, it will just update the RUC charge based on criteria that we've all agreed to. Then, if, in my perfect world, the way we would address new things, extra lane on 205, Rose Quarter, or any big projects, or Safe Routes to School, or Great Street projects, right? New things. If we do that, what was in the bill just before it died, we called it privilege tax. It will be straightforward, it's a sales tax. And it was 2% on new cars and 1% on used cars for the value of more than $1,000. That raised enough money to put $250 million per biennium into big projects, $250 million per biennium into great streets. So that's fixing the Powells and the Hollywood Arts and the Milwaukies and the 82nds and all these streets that were built as highways but actually act as main streets. And then 50 million into Safe Routes to School, and there was a little bit left over for EV rebates, just out of that part.
Sales tax on cars.
If that is the basics of our system going forward, it will be functional. Then when we want a new thing, we say, oh, we want to build a freeway from Klamath Falls to Ontario. Cool. That'll cost 1% sales tax increase. You willing to do that? No? Okay, no freeway. It won't affect this. That's the thing right now. The reason our system is so degraded is because every time we pass an increase in the property tax or in the gas tax, we do it through making deals with legislators. You get a freeway, and you get a bridge, and you get a. So we end up spending more on those projects than what we bring in to maintain the system. So if we can separate those two things, we're never having to do that again. That would set us up for the future of a functional system. So that's one of my two bills. The other bill is addressing what I think is our basic problem here in Oregon, which is we have a broken revenue system. We have, I would argue, the most broken revenue systems in the state and the country. Most states have a three-legged stool: property tax, income tax, and sales tax. We, in our infinite wisdom, chose not to have a sales tax. That means you're going to make that up with property tax and income tax. Then we got the property tax thing back in the early 90s, right, with measures 550. So now it's limited to 3%. You guys are steeped in that, you know well what that's doing to running a city government. It's also affecting education because it used to be 85, 90% of the state's education budget came from property tax. Pre-1990, 85 to 90%. Last year, when we passed our record 11 point whatever billion dollars that the state put into the state education fund, we were well north of 65% of the education fund coming out of the general fund. So we have flipped that completely on its head, and we're underfunding education. That's why we have the crappy scores we have. And we're underfunding mental health care. It's why we rank last in the country for that. You know, all the things that we rank horribly on, if you go far enough upstream, it's because we're underfunding thing. Because all of that wasn't stupid enough. We have a thing called the kicker, which says that the state's economist is meant to guess what our income is 2 years in advance And if they are off by more than 2%, everything above the number they guessed goes back to the taxpayers. Most of it goes back to the very wealthy. So it's why we're in the mess we're in. My bill addresses that last thing. It changes the way the economist predicts and reports the figure. So it's going to be a big lift, but there was every year to pull it off. This is the year, because we are going to be cutting all kinds of services that it's just going to get worse going forward. So keep in mind, this year, that we're cutting a bunch of services, which is housing assistance, some healthcare things, all kinds of stuff. This is all on the table. It's not a done deal yet. We're also kicking $1.4 billion. Were we not kicking $1.4 billion, this would not be a budget year. We would be meeting the budget. So it is literally the kicker is the delta between having a cuts budget. If you go back a few years ago, we kicked $5.6 billion. That same year, we bonded $1 billion to pay for our portion of the interstate bridge. And you all know that when you bond something, you can basically assume that it's going to cost you 1.5 times what you just bonded. So we bonded $1 billion. We are all going to be paying $1.5 billion-ish for the bridge. So think about it. Had this been in effect, that $1.5 billion or that $1 billion could have come, we could have written a check. Here's a check for $1 billion. Didn't have to kick it. So this will not keep it from ever kicking. It will kick occasionally when there's anomalies. That year, it would have probably kicked something. It wouldn't have kicked as much as it did. But so the way it works is the state economist is, back up. The reason this works is because it's addressing their system. So if you think about it, they gather all this data. They look at Wall Street. They look at all these other inputs to the economy. Okay, based on all of this, our calculations are, we're pretty sure that the state's not going to make this, and we're pretty sure it's not going to be less than that. But they always give us a number that's pretty close to their bottom end because they don't want us to over budget and claw money back. So we almost always kick. So what my bill says is, now you're going to give the official kick number is going to be higher than your estimate. And you're going to give the legislature the low end of your estimate. The legislature will budget to that. Now you have this delta. It didn't get budgeted for, and it didn't kick. What can that money be used for? Avoiding debt, the bond on the bridge, buying down debt, funded PERS mandates, and emergencies. So the year we had to come in for a special session because of the fires, housing emergencies, climate emergencies, there's a lot of different ways that could be used. But it's one-time funding that you can put into a thing to solve a problem. Imagine having $2 billion to put into solving housing. You could actually pull something on that would be used. So that's the second bill. I think it's got a solid shot. I introduced it last year. This year, people are paying attention. Those are the two big things I'll be working on. Senator Neron Misland is bringing back my bill on virtual power plants. I chose not to do that one because it's going to have a fiscal, even though the fiscal is to the PUC and not on the general fund. But she's going to bring it back. I'm going to try and help her with that.
So I don't necessarily know what
Virtual
that
power
was.
plants, yeah. So as I think most of you know, the last couple of years I've been working really hard on transmission. So we've got an expected load growth of about 30% over the next 10 years. our transmission system is broadly at capacity. There are a few parts and pieces of it that have a little bit of capacity, but big picture, we're at capacity, which means you can't put more electricity into it. Right? So if we have load growing, the need growing, but no way to put more energy into it, you've got a problem. What that results in is rolling blackouts. That process is still moving along. I will be bringing back my this year because of budget. But short-term solution, one of several. We did some of the short-term stuff in the previous year. We did our grid enhancing technologies bill. So that's a partial short-term solution. VPPs are another short-term solution. And there's a lot of deep thinkers in the energy world that are thinking that this is going to be a much, much bigger deal than right now, the way people think about it. But basically what it is, say you've got an EV that's plugged into a smart charger in your house, and you've got a smart thermostat in your house, and you've got a smart hot water heater, and you've got a solar array with a battery on it. All of those things could be tapped in the moment of a peak need. So this is the issue, right? It's the peaks you're worried about. Maintaining average normal day, we're fine. But it's the peaks, the really hot days, the really cold days. That's where we get into trouble. Let's say we have one of those coming. If an aggregator had met with each of you and made a deal that, okay, when there's a peak need, we will pull a little from your car battery, we will pull from your Tesla wall, we will, your smart thermostat will turn that down 2 degrees, whatever. It doesn't sound like a lot, but when you aggregate millions of people into that system, it's a lot. It's significant. And it is a way that we can hopefully forestall some of the rolling blackouts until we can get more transmission. But that, even in a best case scenario, in a state like Texas where they have no rules, and they can build transmission like this, it's still a 5-6 year process. Right? Right now it's taking Oregon 20 years working on fixing that, but it's going to be, if we do it really well, we might be able to get it down. So we're going to need other things in order to keep from having rolling blackouts, and VPPs are really powerful.
And the utilities would do that work, or some other kind of
So right
entity?
now, PGE will tell you that they are VPP program, and they're working really hard on it. It's very exciting. They'll show you all these slides, tell you all this stuff. They're slow walking. And we have one of the test beds here in Milwaukie. We've had it for 6 years. It's pretty much their program. There's like 5 test beds out there. They are very much slow walking. The states that have been successful in really standing up serious VPPs have been the ones that have allowed third-party aggregators to come in and do the work with the public and get those deals, and then they sell the electricity to the utility, which is why the utilities don't want it. They want to make the profits. So, the utilities are opposed to virtual markets, unless they're setting it up. PG is the only one that's doing any of it, and they're slow. So that's.
Did you say that project has kind of been kicked to 27? Is that what I heard?
The VPP?
Yeah.
No, VPP, Senator Mislin took my bill that I ran last year. I got it out of committee, it died in Ways and Means. She's going to take another round. So I'll co-chief that with her. And hopefully we can get it passed this year. If we can get the Ways and Means folks to understand that that money doesn't have to come out of the general fund. It literally comes out of the utilities. So, so that's what I'm doing. The big things, again, the disconnect, figuring out transportation, funding. The big package will be in 27 coming back. Because I suspect that one way or another, what we passed in the emergency or the special session is going away. Whether we do it or they do it, it's going.
But are you expecting any type of revenue fix for transportation this session?
No, other than we might figure out ways to borrow money from other places, keep ODOT qualified for a year. That's about all I can see. I mean, I haven't seen, none of our bills are published yet. There's another run at a big study, studying nuclear power in Oregon. It's all the rage in the energy world, the SMRs. So we may as well have a conversation. So I'm not opposed to a study bill, as long as it's an honest to God study and not a fluff piece for building SMRs.
On your transmission work and on the point you made about how long it takes to build transmission here, it turned out that Emma, in one of her early jobs, worked on the Boardman to Hemingway.
Oh my God, I'm gonna have to sit down and talk about that.
And the articles now say, yeah. And it's all not even serving the community, right? It's all going to serve.
So that's, okay. Yeah, the system is the system, right?
Yeah.
Electrons don't know, nor do they care where they started or where they end up. They go in and you draw some. This all happens at light speed. The reality is we need more electrons in the system. Probably when they did the original paperwork for V2H, data centers didn't exist.
Right.
So they probably talked about X number of houses or some communities or whatever, because that was what there was. And they knew they needed more transmission. People have been aware for a very long time that we need more transmission. They're just not doing it. So yeah, it's just a ploy by, there's a woman who used to work for the state who was opposed to any new transmission, any wind, any solar, anywhere. So she's just smart enough and well steeped in government workings that she's quite capable of throwing monkey wrenches. She's part of the reason it's taken B2H so long. But that's a great Republican talking point. See, it's not even for houses, it's for data centers. Well, yeah, that's the big draw right now. That's what's using a lot of electricity, so yes. It's irrelevant. The point is, the load is growing, and we need more transmission and more generation. And ideally, that generation is wind and solar and geothermal. It's, I don't know if you know this, but Texas, over the last several years, has built 10 times more wind and solar than Oregon and Washington combined.
Wow.
10 times. Why? It's the cheapest form of new energy. It's dollars and cents. The oil capital of the Western Hemisphere thinks it's a good idea. The folks in the Green Belt should also think it's a good idea to build more wind and solar.
You said on transportation, your dream world is one where operation and maintenance is separate from project funding. What happens, I know Rose Quarter is proceeding, even though they don't have funds necessarily, what's happening with those 2017 obligated projects, especially in light of the package not getting referred?
Excellent question. I don't know that, an answer I would give you would be Mark Evans' answer.
Sure.
There's a lot of people talking about this projects. That, like all the big projects, the inflation on that is out of hand. It's now almost $2 million project. I can't remember what the latest. We're about to hear a change on the IBR, the Interstate Bridge. So, I don't know. I'm not super comfortable making a prediction of what will happen. We don't have the money to build it. Full stop. And the federal government pulled the grant that they had said they were giving us on it. So now we even have less money we don't have. I know that was part of the deal back in the day to get the tiny package that they got. And this is the problem. Funding to projects. Like, it doesn't make sense because unless you're talking about a lot of funding, you end up spending more on the damn projects than you got in tax increase and maintenance and preservation. So that's why I want to separate the two. It's part of those negotiations. And we can get the maintenance and preservation set up like a utility, period. Then we can have the arguments about new projects and whether or not we're willing to raise taxes to do new projects. But we can't. It's not functional. You know, and the reality is we're spending less than any other state in the West. Not just a little bit. The only state that we're spending a little bit less than is Montana. I think with the 6 cent increase, we were going to be either even with Montana or maybe slightly more than Montana. But Utah and Idaho are spending twice what we're spending per capita. It's those tax and spend liberals of
Utah and Idaho, yeah.
Twice what we're spending.
Well,
Washington is spending 3 times. California is spending 4 times per capita. Now, the important thing to note is that about half of that money in all of those states is sales tax. This is why sales tax is so important. At some point, we're going to have to.
well, certainly on cars. I mean, it's like, when the bill was up last year, I did some research, and the 2% that was in that bill is 45 states already charge that or more.
More.
Some of them are as high as 5 or 6%. But all of the states that have a sales tax on cars, which is 45 of them, charge 2% or more.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's such
No,
a,
we were not asking for the amount there. We were just sort of catching up. Yeah, I think both California and Washington are well north of 2%. I think one is 5 and one is 6 or 7. I can't remember. But it's a big deal. Sales tax is really powerful. If you do it, if you design it, you can make it progressive. Don't tax food, groceries. Don't tax medicine. Don't tax diapers. Don't tax the things that you have to have. Just tax the things that are nice to have. And then it's a choice.
Mark, when you were describing your transportation proposal, it's almost like, you get a lot of smart people together and you kind of come up with this gigantic algorithm that sort of guides your investments. A lot of political oversight once you agree to the mechanism. But what makes you think you can get to politicians so they go there?
You know what? I don't base anything I do on what I think I can get the politicians. What I try and offer is the right answer, and then let them argue against the right answer. I think there's enough people the way we've been doing it for 30, 40 years. Can't keep doing it that way. So they're going to be hungry for some new idea. low percentage, right?
Well, you know, the country was actually successful in sort of a similar endeavor 25 years ago. It was after the end of the Cold War. It's called base realignment. At the BRAC.
Commission, yeah.
The BRAC. And basically, somehow, they got the Congress to agree that they weren't going to all fight to maintain these marginal bases and the districts. They were going to give it to a commission to make decisions. So it's kind of similar in approach. I mean, it's obviously different things, but the politicians somehow said, you know, we're never going to get a coherent strategy if we're just all fighting for some little piece of things that we don't need anymore.
We'll see. It's, I mean, this is the weirdest time that I've lived through. I think unprecedented things are happening on the wrong side. So I'm hoping that we can make some unprecedented things happen on the right side. Kind of balance a little bit.
Other topics people wanted to bring up?
Yeah, any questions?
Yeah, I guess we can, if we can shift to the Merle.
Oh, the Merle.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I obviously voted for and supported that bill. And with a lot of, as with a lot of things, I think the way it was, the rulemaking made it not great. I had a long conversation because I've been following the rulemaking closely. It wasn't my bill. And it's, I think they've got 7 cities and you are one of them that's even considering it. Several have looked at it and decided not to utilize it because it's not a well-designed concept. And I think the projects that you all are wanting to use it for, they're doing it a little backwards. The Merle was designed to be the last money. It was designed to be everything else in place, but for 5%,
Yeah.
this project will move forward. Okay, if the city and the county and everybody whose tax districts will be affected agree, you can get basically this loan that you pay back through the tax increment. Right? On paper, that sounds great. I think, and I offered to the staffer, I said, look, keep track of all the reasons why cities choose not to do it. And let's create a list of fixes that we can come back in 27 and do a fixed bill on this and see if we can make it. I heard that the city manager was like, this is going to cost us a lot of money to run, and she's not wrong. Because they made it way more complicated than it needed. So maybe we can fix it in 27 and it will be useful going forward. I'm not saying it's completely useless. I'm just saying it's. And also, if you, let's say you had 10 projects or 15 or 20 projects that you were using that on, it would be less expensive because the same work, reporting work, all the stuff keeping up would be
Right.
nominally more, but like one person could handle 10 or 15 projects. But they're going to be doing almost as much work as they'd be doing for 10 or 15 projects for one. So let's see if we can get it fixed. That'd be the first step. I know that doesn't help this current project, but I think they were thinking about it. It felt like they were wanting to use it to help the property.
Yeah.
Remember that, right? That's not. concept is that you've got all of our other ducks are in a row, just shy of this amount of money.
Are
Well,
there, of the other jurisdictions that you mentioned, are any others considering the model that's been proposed here?
I haven't dug into that. That'd be a good question for staff. She would know.
The model that's been proposed here, you mean buying the property?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if what you're saying is that it was proposed one way and now the implementation proposal is
I mean, it's
backward,
not-
I'm wondering if other jurisdictions are.
When you say lapse money, it's not necessarily a timeline thing. It's you've got a financial stack when you're doing development. So it's the idea is that you're almost there, and this will put it over top. Whether you use that to buy the property or not is not necessarily the relevant part. But if you don't even have that part figured out,
Right.
I think
Well-
you're pushing the edges of the way the Merle was designed.
Yeah, because it doesn't really, it seems like the original intent was not that it would be catalyst funding on the
From
front end. It would rather be, almost like bridge funding or,
Yeah.
all like last mile kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's kind of what the concept was. It was, because there's a lot of projects that are almost going to happen and then they can't quite happen. And so the idea is good. And using the property tax increment, that's pretty clever. But it's so many good ideas. I mean, community solar was a good idea. And they figured that out.
So I would say, that, I mean, all the talk we've done about the Merle and thinking about this idea that they want to use it to buy property. We actually have land banking as our next topic when you leave. It does seem to me there's a place for that buying property is the one thing that you have some inherent value. And so if there were a pot of money that could loan people money to buy the property and then say you get, instead of this 10-year, do it in increment, instead say you pay it back, within a year of sale, like your SDC bill kind of idea. That would be a great tool for people, right? Because there wouldn't be a risk for whether it was the city or the state or, whoever's administering this fund. There would be some security because of the property is the security.
I think where you would get in trouble on that is that you would then have a hard time with the bankers because the city or it's called first.
Yeah.
Refusal, yeah.
Now we're by refusal. What is it? First place if everything goes to hell, who gets their
Securitized
money?
Oh,
Yeah.
in the mortgage, right, yeah.
Not
They have the first position in the,
first position.
Yeah.
So I think you would struggle to get the rest of your financing if that's the way it worked. Now, if you land banked, if the city were to land bank, I think the right solution in where you're thinking is for cities and counties to land bank. And maybe set up land trusts. Build housing, whether it's affordable or middle housing or whatever, but do it on land trusts. This is, I've got a work group functioning that is aiming towards setting up a program where we would mass manufacture 1,000 square foot homes. This is the straw man concept. It's probably going to change between now and 27, but mass manufacturing 1,000 square foot units. And the idea is to be able to sell them for $50,000 a piece. They would be on land trust land. So you would never own the land, but you would own your units after you lived there 10 years. You would have full equity after 10 years. The reason for that, and this is based on Singapore, how they're building most of the housing that the people in Singapore live in. is you don't want private equity to come in and pick up
Mm.
300 of your units and
Mhm.
flip them for $400,000. Right? The idea is to start building generational wealth for the working class, which is, at least in Oregon, it's unlikely that most working class families will be able to afford a home again on the current trajectory. But if we can break that, if we can produce 10,000 units a year, which is the goal, 1,000 square feet, $250,000 a piece, that starts to build generational wealth. So assuming I get this bill passed, 27, big exception, I would be asking for a spot at LOC's conference and AOC's conference to go in and say, okay, start land banking. Because as soon as these things start rolling off the line, you need workforce housing and the idea is that these are stackable. They don't have to be cottage clusters. It can be cottage clusters. It could be fourplexes. It could be single family homes if we're talking about Burns or something where land isn't a problem. We do single family homes on, but the units would be stackable. At least 3 high. If we do this, probably 4 or 5 factories. We might have one factory that's doing things that can be stacked a lot more for the Portland metro area, where the property values are so high that the more dense you can make it. But right now, the current working plan is those units, with mass plywood, would be stackable 3 high.
Wow.
We could do condos, we could do different things. That's the big push that I'm working on in housing. Because I think until we do something like that, we are going to struggle. Because the building of affordable housing is those units are coming in at $450,000.
Mhm.
Cannot build units at $450,000 a door that you're going to be renting for $1,000 a month and then try and maintain. It's not gonna work.
Yeah.
So we've got to start solving for this a different way. This is, I put a lot of effort into learning. I was invited to be on a tour to Singapore and Hong Kong to see their housing programs. There's a bunch of state legislators from all over the country. It's amazing. And Singapore is such a classic example. Highest land values in the world, highest density in the world. 80% of people own.
Wow.
In America, we're teetering around 50%. Most people spend less than 20% of their income on their housing. We feel like we're doing good if we're spending 30%. Half the renters in Milwaukie are spending 50%. And they have been homeless people. Yeah. So they've cracked it now. I think to the greatest degree that we can emulate what they're doing, we could be successful here too. And I think if we did it here in Oregon, obviously, the rest of the West Coast would follow suit and start doing similar things. But, big lift.
So that's a bill that you're working on, or is this just?
It'll be for 27 at the earliest. Got like 65 people in this work group. Everything from where are we getting the wood, to what do the units need to look like, to what does the manufacturing need to look like, to wages, to every aspect. Where's the initial money going to come from to start the ball rolling? And the reason for doing it as a sales piece instead of Vienna also has a really good program that they've been doing for decades, but they have a constant influx of government money. So those units are rented. Your rent doesn't change. Your unit, but that, in order to build more, you have to have money. Whereas with this, once we get the pipeline flowing, the $250 that you pay for your house, you pay for the next house coming in. So it just would be a self-timed pump.
So before we let you go, I just wanted to throw two other topics out there. I know from talking to you that they haven't been your focus, but if there was anything you maybe wanted to say about them. One is anything coming down on relationships with ICE and what we can do as a state. I mean, there's limits to what we can do for sure, but if there's anything you want to talk about on that, and the other one being the Oregon Government Ethics Commission and the serial meetings stuff.
I have a meeting scheduled with the legislator who's working on that. So I don't know anything about how hard he's going to push on that. I have been pounding the table in caucus about that since I got there. I'm like, you guys are breaking the rules that you hold city councils and county commissioners to right now, right here in this room.
Well, thank you. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah. So I'm hoping he's pushing hard enough. But like I said, I'm meeting with him, I think, next week or the week after. It's actually next week because it's during the ledge days. As far as ICE, I know that there's at least 2 legislators, and I've heard there's 3 bills. So to some degree, and I think they're talking about masking. I think they're talking about identification. Question I have is, can we enforce? My personal feeling is, how about we just enforce the laws that already exist? You can't break into someone's house without a warrant. You can't break into someone's car without a warrant. You can't take somebody away without having charged them with a crime, hold them indefinitely, and never read them their rights. Those are all existing laws that aren't being enforced by anyone. Me personally, I would like to enforce those. But I can imagine that would make the people who would have to enforce those things very nervous. So.
Yeah, in some cases, I'm not even sure who the people would be, right? Yeah.
Well, you would be local law enforcement.
It'd have to be.
You'd be asking basically our cops to stand up to ICE. There's 7 different ways that can go really wrong. Particularly considering the kind of people they're hiring. Yeah, we'll see what people have. Everyone's thinking about it and trying to figure out.
And so when will bills actually drop? Is there a date?
There is.
Yeah, bill drop deadline is the 9th, and I think it's a week after that. So,
They get published.
The 9th, meaning this Friday?
but that's to drop them. So you have until that day to submit your bill back form. Let me
Okay.
go. I've got it on my calendar.
But they're not going to be public yet for a
For
while.
another week after that. Yes, it takes a little bit for them to.
God bless all the folks in legislative council who are trying to get all these things done.
Yeah.
At least in short session, there's a limited number of bills.
All right, other final questions before we let Mark go?
How are things going with parks?
Oh, well, we have a letter. I can send you the link.
They're going great.
They're going great. We had a special meeting in November, and then we spent our last meeting in December going through it, and we sent a letter to the county with sort of our thoughts on just, commit this much money and we'll take over doing the park. So that's where we are right now. Then there's a letter
From Milwaukie Bay.
for Milwaukie Bay.
But
Yeah, we've been
but the
focused.
thrust of that latest communications are, you're getting a good deal.
Yeah, because we're taking responsibility for maintenance of the Milwaukie Community Center, among other things. So they are getting a good deal.
Oh, wow.
And so that's the thrust of this letter that's pending with them. And they have taken like a 3 or maybe 4 week holiday break. They're like, they were supposed to be back this week and now they're
There's
not.
nothing wrong with to be a county clerk.
It must be.
Paid a living wage, and you get a big long vacation.
Yeah, because they were supposed to be back today and they're now not back till next Tuesday. But I can send you our letter, we put it out on on the city website. So I can send you a link, and that kind of lays it out and shows you there's a graphic that shows like why, what we're giving up, what we're getting, what they're giving up, what they're getting, why it's a good deal for them. So
Well, good luck.
thank you. Thank you.
Rep Gambo, before you leave, I just want to say thanks for spending the time with us to go through. You gave us the appetizer for 26, and then also a little bit of appetizer for 27. But I also really appreciate you talking a little bit more about your understanding of Merle, and just even talking about the financial stacking and where the intent was supposed to be. That was toward the end. That's actually how I read Merle when it first dropped. That was the intent of how to use it. So appreciate you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it necessarily precludes that money being used to buy the property, but you would have to show that you have the rest of the stack
It makes sense.
in place.
I think there's a lot of,
Yeah, I think there is too. I thought it was a good idea. I said, it's amazing what they can screw.
And I know we're going to be watching the rulemaking that they drop maybe later this month, but I appreciate the offer.
Yeah, there'll
to
be some
almost
new-
revisit.
Yeah, and I told staff to please keep, I said this in some of the conversations, but we keep track of all the issues that people have. We can fix it all. It shouldn't be that hard to fix. It's a big answer. And you need all the tricks we can get to keep things functioning.
Well, thank you for everything and for coming and spending time with us and
Yeah.
for representing us. And let us know if there's, we love to write those letters. So let us know if there's something we can help with very much. And the short session moves fast, so
It doesn't.
not a lot of time for letters, but if there's anything.
Yeah, I mean, supporting both of the bills that I'm working on is obviously,
Yeah, we'll keep us posted.
and near on this one's PPP bill. That's just having a hard time getting the rest of the legislature to understand just how important that is. They're just, until it's hitting them in the face.
What's the pushback? Like, is it like
Understand
a
it
general,
predominantly. The pushback was that it had a fiscal, and I said, yeah, but fiscal is the PUC's budget, the PUC just charges utilities for that, and we're talking, even if the utility raised everyone's rates to cover it, it would be a fraction of a penny to each household a month. It's nothing. It's like fiscal was 700,000 or something.
oh,
It's just for them to have staff to set up the VPP program. Because the actual work to gather all the people is going to be third parties. It's going to be people who that's what they do for a living.
Right.
And it's working really well in some states that have similar bills. And it's yeah, we're behind the 8 ball at this point on energy.
Well, I will count on the council president to keep us posted as your bills go to committee and help us figure out where to plug in.
Yeah, the revenue bill will go to revenue, obviously. Transportation, rock bill will go to transportation. It's no longer joint, go to the House Transportation Committee. So I didn't say this, but I'm co-chair of the Joint Transportation Oversight, which was part of the bill that we passed. So we'll see if that committee stays in place, but I think it will. Obviously, there's value in that conversation. But Confam and I, who's my co-chair, want to utilize it to help people understand why things are as expensive as they are. We need to fund them. So yeah, anytime you all know that you can reach out. And I'm happy to come back.
Thanks.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck with the short session. And then, next we have Joseph and Mandy on land banking.
Thanks again, Mark.
I might sit around and listen to the land bank.
Feel free.
So this is a continued item. As you might recall, a few months ago, we had this conversation. It was abbreviated. It was kind of fast paced because we had a full agenda. So I asked Mandy to kind of re-walk us through some of the concepts and the things that we were trying to talk about in the staff report. So she's going to walk us through some of those items, and then we'll have a broader conversation, hopefully hit some of your questions from last time, but just a deeper conversation today than we did before. So, with that, I know we also have limited time. We've got about an hour, and I still would love to talk about committee assignments, at least for 5 minutes then. So just keep an eye on time for 50 minutes, 45 minutes of this. Mandy, please take it. What you got?
Well, good afternoon. Amy Bird, Development Project Manager. So once again, land banking is referenced in our housing production strategy as item A. And kind of to frame this presentation discussion, the HPS does reference land banking as a formal program. But it also references a land banking strategy for cities that it might not be feasible to run an actual formal land bank. So that's just part of what we're going to get into. And then we also included land banking strategy as part of our council goal action plan on the affordability goal. So refresher on land banking is typically a separate, like its own entity that's run by specialized staff and has an ongoing source of revenue and also an ongoing property stream kind of in the pipeline for bringing in additional properties. So it requires that upfront capital to purchase the properties, staff with expertise in real estate, and the ongoing pipeline of properties coming through. So this is where in the staff report, I kind of referenced how we can kind of be more creative with a strategy that's not a formal land bank. And I kind of put it in a side-by-side here on this slide where we show kind of different strategies that would make up something that's more realistic for a city our size that might not be ready for developing the formal land bank. So we'll kind of go through some of these ideas, and then today we're just looking for feedback. We're going to be crafting a document that's this strategy for land banking, and staff's just going to use that as a guide to kind of focus our direction on what we're doing with land banking. So the first item here is kind of the most critical one, which is the partnerships in what we're talking about, where yes, we already have relationships with a lot of these entities listed here, but including partnerships in our land banking strategy would help focus that conversation and help the city to keep a lookout, keep relationships going with these entities and know kind of what their priorities are, what their criteria is, such that if we hear of land opportunities coming up, we can kind of facilitate conversations that would allow those other agencies who are maybe more experienced in purchasing land and developing it and doing the asset management to keep the city out of that role, but yet the city's still doing kind of matchmaking and connecting those dots. We referenced also the city's buildable lands inventory, which is included in the housing capacity analysis. But what we were getting at with this item is just trying to make it more intentional, taking it a step further to where we have those actual criteria of what would constitute a preferred or desirable piece of land, that we could kind of create maybe a matrix or a database of parcels within the city that would be attractive for affordable housing or parks or economic development, things that like align with city goals and priorities. And we could also include some of those anecdotes from conversations with our partners about what priorities are for our partners, so that, again, as we're hearing of things in the community, people may be interested in maybe selling, we can jump on those conversations and try and get involvement with the appropriate entities. The policy framework aspect is kind of where we dive in more to the criteria that we would be looking at, criteria that our partners would be looking at. This can be also just a section of the land banking strategy where staff kind of hones in on what does make a parcel desirable, either for us potentially or for some of these partners that we have. Like, is it close to transit? Is it maybe an area of the city with not a lot of parks, green space that we would be maybe looking at? That would be a cool place for a park. Stuff like that. On the holding and disposition strategy, this is, it kind of goes without saying that we would be wanting to focus on a disposition strategy on acquisitions that the city has taken on, so that it keeps us honest, keeps us accountable, make sure that we aren't, that we're taking steps towards disposition and not having sites that are sort of stagnant. The land use agreements, these are just some of the ideas that I came across in looking into this, a lot of which we are already using some of these tools. And again, this document, this land banking strategy document will just be kind of a way to memorialize some of these tools and ideas so that it helps guide staff throughout. So ground leases is a tool that can be used to engage community land trusts. We have used this tool at Historic City Hall in the back parking lot. Development agreements, we definitely use this tool at Historic City Hall. We'll have a development agreement at Sparrow. That's where we can spell out what gets built and under what conditions. Deed restrictions and covenants, and some of these overlap with the development agreement and they kind of are related to one another, but the deed restrictions and covenants also, we have examples at Historic City Hall on the historic preservation aspects, and we will have at Sparrow for the affordable home ownership. Option agreements or right of refusal is a tool that local jurisdictions can use on targeted properties. And in fact, we had included this at Historic City Hall to where if the buyer ends up wanting to sell in the future, they call us first to give us that right of first refusal. The city is who I'm referring to. So
we have that in our DDA or it's on the deed?
Yeah, it's on the deed.
Okay, okay.
So again, and that's a tool that's kind of being floated around in some jurisdictions of how we can use that in our affordable housing with like an ordinance type thing, but it's, to my understanding, not been implemented yet. So people, it's just kind of we're following, we're tracking it, we're interested, but it's not like been implemented on a large scale yet. And then the last one I have here is funding linked agreements, which again, we already use this tool. It's when you provide grants or fee waivers or infrastructure support in exchange for specific land use commitments, like at Sparrow, where we're gonna potentially grant them some CET funds and transfer them the land in exchange for making affordable housing and right-of-way improvements. The last one I have here is the funding. If possible, have a set-aside fund in case a land acquisition opportunity does fall in the lap of the city. That's too good to pass up, and it made me think of this very building. I wasn't here when that happened, but it gives the city flexibility to act and be agile if something does come up that fits all of those criteria, and maybe meets one of the needs of our partners, that we can help with gap financing to do an acquisition, that type of thing. So with that,
So can we go back to that topic? I wanted to ask a question, so, and I kind of gave you guys a heads up on this, but, the city, a few times, this was before I was on city council, but things I was watching, the way the city got the Coho property, for example, was, I think the city had, in connection with ODOT and the improvements that were being made on McLaughlin, there was going to be a taking of some property along the McLaughlin frontage, and then in the course of that, there was a conversation about, oh, maybe the city should just buy the whole thing. And they had, I guess, a willing seller. Like I said, I was not on the council at the time, but they sort of, in a fairly short order, made the decision to buy that, and I think they bought it out of utility funds. I think they didn't have a set aside opportunity fund or land acquisition fund, and I think they bought it out of utility funds, and then afterwards figured out a way to fund it and pay back the utility funds. I think the city did that under a few city managers back, with a couple properties. I think that's how they also bought the Pond House, which was the house behind the library. Is that kosher? I mean, it was the way to jump on an opportunity that was there when you didn't have cash.
If I can try to answer it, Mayor, I want to say we have had kind of an ad hoc land banking strategy, and we've been scrappy with it because we've kind of seen opportunities as they come. And Rep. Gamba, former Mayor Gamba, was a part of that with Sparrow, obviously I've seen the opportunity, and then we would figure out how to fund it somehow. And yes, we did loan ourselves money through utility funds, which is, as I understand it, to ORS, that allowed.
Okay.
The repayment process is something I'm less, I understand less, as far as how you make the utility whole again. I wasn't a part of it before, so I'm not sure how we made that happen. And then we've also used other tools too. We've also used bonds. So we've been scrappy. And I'm also guessing we've done that in the past as far as loaning utility funds to buy property because we had not as much CIP work going on as we do now. So I mean, those utility funds are more accounted for, I would say, at this point, especially some of the water projects we have going on.
So when you said that a bond was used for this building, so I just have this notion that bonds take a long time to set up. And so my question is, if you want to be agile, how well does that work?
Yeah, I think it was through the URA we did your full faith credit bond. Is that the URA for this building? Do you remember? Yeah. And it can be fast.
Can it?
It can be. So we're here.
Well, I was going to say, in this case, the seller was only talking to us. It wasn't something where somebody else, they were giving us some time to pull the money together. Whereas in some of the other opportunities that may arise, there could be other,
Like 60 days.
Yeah.
90
That's
days.
what I'm getting at, you know?
I know that land banking is one of the allowable uses or like set aside uses within our URA. Would that take a separate meeting of the MRC to be able to do the like distribution of funds? Or I guess in some ways you're describing a pot of money that's agile. Is our URA pot of money agile as is, or?
Yeah, it is. We certainly can acquire properties using URA dollars. Obviously, only within the URA though.
Sure.
So one thing that's helpful is that we create a strategy, we can at least think about how to budget for that, especially as we go into a budget cycle here. If we want to budget funds from the URA for URA area acquisition of properties, we could do that. What amounts make sense? I have to look over the whole spectrum of projects that we have, utilize Milwaukie Bay Park, Kellogg, Main Street, and those things. So yeah, to answer your short answer is yes.
I mean, CET is a pretty nimble one. I know it's not like a consistent one, but with as much as development, I mean, we had that thing up to 2 point something million at one point. I mean, and if we're talking about being targeted, I mean, we don't have to loan on our own utilities. We don't have to worry about, because
I agree, that's cheap.
I don't mind using the URA funds either, as long as it doesn't pull away from some of the grants that we're providing.
Yeah.
But I think CET is a little bit more flexible.
CT is very flexible, it's just not as much.
That's why you
Yeah.
probably have to partner with the nonprofit, some half and half deal or something like that. If they, wanted some of the funding, if they didn't have all the funding, that could also be used for like that last mile funding we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Where it's like, hey, we got this much for the property, we're just short a few thousand.
Yeah.
And then,
That's where I think, what Mandy was talking about, leveraging those partnerships is really a big key to bringing the whole financial stack and the expertise that we don't necessarily have.
I want to talk more about the fund and how much we funded at. But first, can you help just color in the proposal that you're describing, imagining we have some money set aside, what does the process look like to acquire new sites? Is someone waiting for a rumor that we might have a site that's available and we try and buy it? Or I guess I understand in the formal land banking process that there's staff dedicated to this. What are we describing that's kind of separate, or I guess what is that?
We are, so first and foremost, we're creating some guardrails, some direction for staff through creation of a strategy. So like, how do we look at property? How do you want us to look at properties? What's prioritization look like for us when it comes to properties? What do we want to use those properties for? That's really helpful for us to then we're not spinning wheels and just looking at everything and anything, and even taking meetings, not that they happen often, but taking every meeting. We have some direction. The second piece is really figuring out, God, I left my train of thought right there. Getting the, sorry, can you ask the question again, Council President?
I guess I was trying to say, God, make me repeat myself.
I got you now.
You got it.
Yeah, I got it, sorry. We don't have all the expertise and full-time staff to do this, but what we do have is we have an understanding, Mandy and myself, of what our capacity currently is.
Sure.
And we have been able to have some of the basic data points, like the building lands inventory, which gives us a basic understanding of what's out there as far as vacancies. But even that data isn't complete, because when we say, if you look at the map, even where it says something is actually developed, it's not really true. That could be just like a shed. That doesn't really mean it's developed. So this would give us a little bit more aggressive staff time, looking at these properties and really tracking them. We're not tracking them right now. We don't have to, and we're not directed to. So this is kind of creating the strategy to help direct staff, but then also start tracking and following up on the data we already have.
So to make sure I'm getting this, we wouldn't have a formal land banking department or staff, but the policy and the framework that we set would direct staff time that we spend trying to be conscious of opportunities for land banking within the framework that we give.
There you go.
And then we have like an exec about property acquisition.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. That's spot on. And that's kind of how we have to do it. That's why we're kind of saying, this midline, not the full-blown land bank makes sense. It's something that's actually sized to us. Makes sense. We are, again, scrappy, but also you do have expertise. And I think Mandy maybe undersells herself, but she does have expertise in construction and in affordable housing. So we do have some skill set. That's not currently on staff. We want to utilize further. We can stretch, so.
And I've talked to Adam more too. He has his own kind of wish list of parcels within the city. And so it's kind of like people and Sierra do might, we could just kind of formalize it and make it usable.
Yeah.
Well, and would you would you try to like you find all these parcels on this improved, refined, buildable lands inventory, and then would you like be in contact, like do a letter writing campaign to all the owners to say, please let us know when you're thinking about.
I think that could be part of it, but it also depends on what the, what your all priorities are. Because I don't think you want to write to everybody and have those conversations unless you knew that they have, a size that made sense for whether it's a park, whether it's affordable housing, or whatnot.
Well,
But that could definitely be a part of it.
so I think, maybe not in the near term, but in the midterm, I think that what you would need from us is some direction of, how would we develop? That target list might be size of the parcel, it might be the geographical location of the city, what the targets would be, because I think, target park acquisition would be different from an acquisition for modest income housing and that kind of thing, or even commercial development. So, again, I think that this is probably too scattershot. I agree with you, but without that, I'm not sure how you focus your efforts. And then it gets a little bit messy because you and I have talked about some properties that, that we hear that, an owner is coming here and they might do something with it, and then, they got a business manager and they say, nah, we're not interested. And, it's kind of, it's not an exact science about how you approach these things. It's just not as easy as writing a letter.
Yeah. I think you're spot on a big piece of this is like the secret sauce in a lot of land banking and really working with property owners is that relationship building.
Mm-hmm.
And that
It takes a lot of time.
Absolutely does. Yeah.
Well, and some of the affordable housing developers
Those relationships.
and they're doing that more, and they're keeping tapped into how I'm gonna the owners and the city makes a connection with those developers. That way we kind of close the loop, and if it's within our jurisdiction, they call us, we come in, it's just connecting the dots.
It's a lot easier to ask the people who are going to be building on it, right? To get that information. I mean, it probably cut a lot of that initial data gathering from us, because figuring out what we're looking for, we should ask them.
Yeah.
Exactly.
What do you guys look for based on our land use rules and regulations, like, minimum lot sizes? What are you guys willing to build? What's the smallest lot size, and kind of have a range?
Maybe already has a formula.
Right, exactly. Yeah, 100%.
Usually do.
So that would be part of the legwork of taking those relationships and partnerships kind of to the next level.
Do we know what the budget ask would be for the framework?
No, I think the budget ask, first, is there an interest in trying to create a budget ask? And I think part of that's up to staff to really figure out what makes sense across the whole board. But I do think it's, from my opinion, I do think there is, it's worthwhile to at least explore, and even if it's very, very modest, it could be something, because don't just think about it as the only dollars. When you have some dollars in the bank, you can leverage those dollars with grants, for
100%.
matching, and then also partner with folks when you have some dollars that makes much more real, even if it is.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Sometimes they just have a gap, just can't make it work without the last couple thousand, $100,000.
yes.
Dig it.
I appreciate that we've got your RA funds, CP funds, possibly funds to be set aside in the next biennium's budget. I think a conversation that I would love for us to have at some point. There are some different density bonuses that other cities do that have resulted in a lot of dollars for affordable housing. Austin's, in particular, the downtown density bonus. They say you can build an extra floor of housing, you set aside a certain percent as affordable, or you pay a fee in lieu of that captures that exact dollar amount it would cost to build and operate that housing. And a lot of developers have done that fee in lieu of option. It results in a ton of money. And of all the density bonuses that I've read across the state, across the nation, that has resulted in about 7,000 units of affordable housing. So something, whether or not it's that or other things that offer fee in lieu of options or creative things like the CET that
It's interesting.
get more money coming into the city, I think just would be really, really helpful. I appreciate that we have the CET. I'm glad we had the foresight to do that. But I'm also thinking, okay, what do we get aside from just a one-time budget allocation reoccurring to capture?
Well, I think that's a conversation to have when we're supposed to start of the high density.
Sure,
And that's a place to maybe have that conversation.
I think one of the things I do want to hammer home a little bit too is you do have some expertise on staff, right? I do think it's worthwhile to put together some structure here, because my time in Milwaukie, we've had it's been very similar. We've had some expertise on staff, and that staff, they're gone. And we lose that momentum, and we lose some of our ability to really be, should be capturing some properties or goals. And so I just say that because I think you should kind of take advantage of the moment, so to speak, and at least create some scaffolding so that when there is ever a change, God forbid, when there is ever a staff change, you would at least have something ready for the next folks to come in.
I'll speak that into existence.
Yeah, so,
Yeah, there's questions up there.
there's questions up there. I mean, a couple times parks were brought up, and I guess I feel like, we're between Milwaukie Bay Park and whatever future green space we have. When the dam comes out, we have a lot of, I would say, in my mind, parks should not be a big part of this, but we do have a map, Peter has it, of park deficient areas. There's also one in the NCPRD's their system plan. We should not be looking for opportunities in the places that are park deficient, which is not this side of Milwaukee, which is not the western side of Milwaukee generally. But yeah.
But that's how you develop that target criteria, it's, size, geographic location in the city. And I agree with you, we got a couple of big park projects that could take a long time. But we know that we have a known deficiency in at least one area of the city. And so I would say, that would be a viable target area. Because we do know something that residents said.
Yeah, there's a few places where there's a gap in half mile or quarter mile, whatever it is, circles around the parks. Yeah, there's definitely multiple gaps. It's not on this side, not on this western side of town. So, yeah.
I'll add a third voice saying, looking at that green space map that we developed, thinking about those properties for park specific, I think would be great. When I think about other lenses, we're going to talk at council reports about the state of TriMet and the cuts that they're experiencing. There's a great PSU article or study that they just did that shows that if you build housing near transportation, you get a lot of ridership from that. And if it's affordable housing, the ridership's even more than they would have expected. And so I think thinking about proximity to transit, and especially if it's affordable housing, that would be really valuable. The other piece that I think would be helpful, or a strategy to lay on, is within our neighborhood hubs, thinking about land banking as a way to catalyze that growth that we're hoping to see. I think that we're going to have a market strategy that talks about what does it take to see a neighborhood hub take off. But oftentimes we know that it takes public dollars first to encourage private dollars to come in afterwards. And so I think thinking about that would be a helpful one as well.
So what do people think on the specific questions up there?
I agree with staff's recommended approach. I think we
Yeah,
kind
I'm
of
a
discussed these
yes
steps.
on 1 and 4.
Others about 1 and 4? I think that's a really good place to kind of settle for a second.
Yeah, I'm good with 1 and 4.
I'll switch that one, Dave.
Yes.
Making some faces over
No, I'm looking at the map. I'd really love to see an overlay on this map with the hubs and, see where we have potential spatially to utilize the funds that we're talking about.
Gotcha. Yeah, yes.
And I would also love to see this on plotter size, so we can actually, dig into it a little bit more.
See it on what?
Like a larger size scale.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, when I think about a study session, it's not just these policy conversations, but it's really kind of looking at it like, within the realm of the things that we can take action on. If we're talking about building, or even entertaining greater height density in downtown, how many of those buildings are structurally sound to do something like that? What does that look like? How many individual property owners are we talking about? And maybe that's the staff capacity where, you're like, I think those would be very active conversations to be able to move forward. And I think that, we had a lot of meetings and conversation around the housing production strategy, around, how we got to the BLI. But where do you go from here? Is council the advisory body, or do you have some type of intermediate advisory body where you can have more in-depth brainstorming conversations? That's, I guess, one of the questions coming up for me.
Yeah.
So, but all of those questions are questions that happen after I say yes to 1 and 4, and I say yes to 1 and 4.
That's great. Thank you all for those answers. I think as far as I understand your question about the BLI and kind of, are you talking about a subcommittee here, or are you talking about is there another agency that requires us to kind of?
I mean, I understand that there's interest and capacity and skill at a staff level. What does that implementation look like, and what sort of timeline are we on, so that when we get to the budget ask discussion, how do we form something that gives us a quantifiable ask? And then how do we as council feel confident in, weighing in on that methodology and I guess, where do we roll our sleeves up on this?
Yeah,
That's what I'm wondering.
that's good. That's a good question. I think you're actually hitting on something that is pretty important, and that's kind of having more of those getting into the weeds, frankly, with you all, so that when we do create a budget ask, that we know why. And I don't, as far as timeline goes, I would say that we're probably not in alignment with when we do a budget ask and when this is coming. So that's fine, because we also can do budget adjustments on a quarterly basis. So we can always have a conversation about money a little bit later than it's current.
Well, and we're talking about 2 pots of funding that are not, fully expended in a biennium. And that's on purpose. But there are allocations that come out of those pots of funds. So, I guess my question is, what's the development of the program offer for the budget? How do we develop an actual something out of this? And I think that these questions get us to a conceptual approval. But I think that we may have some more involved discussion on this that needs to take place in a study session.
Yeah, I'd agree. Thank you. I think I envisioned it, and Mandy, I don't know if I shared this with you. I envisioned it was getting more, just feel like we're kind of starting to doing this a little bit more and more. I figured that we'd at least come back with something even a little bit more refined, not fully baked by any means. But just taking some of the flavor and direction from this discussion and then bringing something to you to look at. And then we can go over the map and we can talk about things in a little bit more refined way. And then I think we might need, depending on where you all settle at the end of the day, we can come back a couple times. That's fine. Whether it's a study session or work session or even a regular session if needed. I do think there should be an informal adoption at some point, but I do think we can do this until you all are comfortable with that we're all seeing down the similar tunnel with what this should be.
Well, the question I would ask is that I agree that there needs to be more of a roll up your sleeve session or sessions to just have and really get into the weeds and that kind of thing. But the question I ask myself is the full council needed for that, or can we have a subset? I'm kind of of the opinion that maybe a subset of the council would do that. Certainly be, supportive of anyone who wants to do that, or I volunteer to do it myself. But I just think it would be efficient.
Yeah. Yep, agreed. And maybe that's a good segue because we're talking about committee assignments. And so, maybe we can add this as a council liaison sort of position in the discussion of our capacities and interests.
This would be obviously just a term limited kind of subcommittee.
Yeah, I guess my worry about having it as a subcommittee is we've got, I do think that at least the looking at the map and digging into the mapping feels to me like something we all need to do. And that, and some of us have the planning commission background and some of us don't, and, some of us looked at it in the context of that housing protection strategy and some of us didn't. And I feel like we all need to kind of be on the same page on that.
I agree. Actually, I think you guys are all, if I'd be so bold, I think you all are interested in this topic quite a bit and that it might save time. My worry is that we do a subcommittee and then we come back to council for a work session or a regular session and everybody wants to talk about it as much as we probably would. So I don't know. It could be adding more time. I appreciate
My optimism
Likely
that
happen.
the rest of the council would follow the recommendation.
Yeah, I think that got squashed. Pollyanna.
Well, if she can do it.
Well, and we have a budgeting period that's breathing down our neck. And so while we have talented staff that have the expertise to put something like this together, you might not actually want a subgroup of us involved in that. You might just want to put the proposal together and then have us weigh in on it.
I would say let us see what we can do this next scope and if we get closer, hooray. And if you think we're super far off and need more than maybe you think that.
I think this is a place where Milwaukie shines. A question like this or pondering of this, how you use the tools that are available to us in a really creative and catalytic way. This is where we do our best work. So it's really exciting, and I'm grateful that in the weeds of your existing portfolio that you have some excitement about something like this. 'Cause I think this could be really special.
Yeah, definitely. I've been waiting. Good. That's nice to hear. Yeah.
Thank you. I don't know if Mandy, do you need Any other
I think
questions?
this is good. Yeah, it's in alignment with what you were saying about me taking a stab at skeleton strategy and getting a reaction, having something for you guys to react to.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah, right on.
Certainly. Thank you very much. Thank you, council. Oh, take one and pass it around, please.
Play call sheet?
Yeah. Right, call sheet.
Play call sheet.
That's the all thing, I assume.
I thought
About the
this is
size
where we
of them.
pick our fantasy teams.
This is actually,
That too.
this is fantasy committee meeting. And
And you all look.
right. Look at it like this.
Yeah. You can't let anybody see your lip.
Doesn't see it. The draft is live. We're live on the draft. Actually, who's got first pick?
Let's see where we're at. What's wrong?
So the last time this was touched was back in October, and that was essentially just me adding very last cause, last row. It says Rotary City of Peace, because we adopted to participate in that resolution. So in that, and I put council president and council filter body. What's the very last application? What? Yeah. So that's the
You don't
only.
remember that? That was just.
No, I didn't hear what he was saying. Sorry.
They've been wondering where you were. It's every Wednesday too.
Said your calendar.
So that's the only change since you probably last have seen this. And obviously there hasn't been much change on the council, so there's hasn't been much need to really move things around, but this is your opportunity to take a look and see if you'd like anything, do a little horse trading or.
So, a couple of questions and comments. The fire district one, as I understand it, has not met really since Ann left. And I've talked to Emma about this a couple of times. The concept was the fire chief and 2 members of his board, the city manager and 2 members of our council. And I was part of that in my early council years, and we did it about 3 times a year. It was very informal. Sometimes it was at the fire station, sometimes at City Hall. Maybe we don't need it. Sometimes there's a thing, like there were issues like we were jointly going to spend money on some upgrades to the public safety building, and that was a topic to have a conversation about. They were going out for a bond. They wanted to talk about that. There were occasional sort of meatier topics, but a lot of it was just sort of, I don't want to say fluff, but it wasn't super important to, what council was doing. So I don't know if we need that one anymore, but I feel like we've been carrying it on the list for a couple of years without actually doing it. So
I'm happy to check in.
we should decide check with the fire chief and see if he's been missing it, because it hasn't been happening, I don't think.
Yeah, I don't, because usually I would get.
Fire chief?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, we would meet with the fire chief, and it was me and Desi.
yeah, it was you and Desi,
And
most recently,
Yeah.
and Ann.
And I don't mind still meeting, because it wasn't very often.
No, it was only 2 or 3
They call
times.
meetings when they need them, right? Or do they have a set?
I mean, the last
meeting
meeting, no, there's no set meeting schedule. They called, it's been kind of ad hoc. Like, the last thing we talked about was more about the bond stuff that was going through, and then some of the, I mean, more the bigger things that we talked about.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we haven't really met in a while, though.
Yeah, I don't think it's happened since Ann left, and then it was happening, like I said, 2 or 3 times. I mean, yeah.
I mean, I don't mind doing that just because, I mean, maybe change some of the discussion towards more of emergency response related, especially with the flooding that we recently had. It's kind of, We're
Well,
up
and
to date
now
on
that
the
we're
processes.
running the CERT team, it's interesting because they used to oversee the CERT team, and now that we're overseeing it, I don't know if that's less or more reason to.
maybe that
meet
other
with them.
vacant member could be a CERT member.
Oh, that's true. If not, if no other, I mean, that,
Liaison.
Yeah,
yeah.
I think that'd be,
I guess yeah.
I'll like keep for now.
Well, or have a conversation with the
Yeah.
fire chief and see if we want to start it up again. Yeah.
If for some reason they're not, you know,
Oh, well, I did want to bring up, we do not have a Milwaukee resident on their board. We have had at different times. I mean, somebody has to run, so it's not like we get to appoint. It's somebody who has to
Oh,
run for
interesting.
an office. And we have had Milwaukee residents on it at different points in the past. I do think somebody told me that they have some openings, which I think are on the May ballot. They're in the May or the November ballot. We do have, but I think there could be an opportunity to recruit somebody if we thought we had local people who might be interested in serving on the fire district board.
I might know some people.
Okay. Well, I will try to pin down when that is. I meant to look at that.
And to answer your question, if the chief's more up in the air, like, you know, leave it to council, it's public safety, so I'd like to have something more. It's to have updates and, because especially during fire season, winter, things like that, where it's like, you know, we're gonna get hot days, we're gonna get, you know, just to see what they're seeing. Really.
yeah. And there's the fire district side, whether they think it's valuable to meet with us, there's also the side of.
That's what I'm saying, yeah. And that's something, if he's like, you know, I don't have the time, I get it. But if he's like, you know, it's up to council, if they're still interested, then I would like to.
Okay.
They like to talk to us when they want to float on it.
Yeah, when they want to float them on, they definitely want to talk to us. Yeah. And then the other one was, I guess we leave it on here, but this Clackamas County Child Care for All has been dormant for like a year now.
I still want to do it if it ever comes to.
Yeah,
would
I
like
guess
to,
we can
but-
leave it on there. I mean, it may come,
Isn't there a state, like group that's working on that, or a state task force, statewide task force?
very well could be.
'Cause I know a nurse over at Providence, Milwaukie, that says she's working on the child care for all task
Oh.
force, but I think it's more of, I don't know, I'll find out, 'cause maybe that's something that I can redirect to and pivot towards that. But I think that's more of a, advocating statewide for it, which I'm still fine with, obviously.
The other one to prune, the TSPAC, the transportation system, thing, but maybe more past our cupcake, so I think we're done.
Yeah, cupcakes, absolutely.
You also came off I was looking at it in the Milwaukee Omni, I think it disappeared on January 1st. It went into that one's,
Line right through.
Thank you, Council President, for participating on that.
And
Oh, way back in the day.
Right.
Well, thank you both.
I didn't get a frickin' cupcake.
still, I'll pass that along. I ate yours for you. I did eat two that day.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
I would also call out the League of Oregon Cities Legislative Committees. I think those will gear up at the end of the short session. And there'll be a kind of thing they'll go through this spring and fall for getting things, prioritized for 2027.
You have to
So,
apply to get on those,
yeah,
so look at them now.
yeah. But I mean, I don't think they turn people away necessarily.
But they do,
There is
yeah.
a formal.
they do, yeah, there's a formal process, and they will
I have the
turn you
list.
away if you miss the window of that process.
Okay.
I have a list if anybody wants of committees.
Of all of them, please.
I think it's all of them, because the POC caucus, we're trying to get people on from our caucus onto some of those. So they're asking actually me to sign up for some of them.
It's a weekly event.
Fantastic. Yeah.
On the Homeless Solutions Coalition,
I'm
to
no
the
longer
list.
on the board.
okay,
We can take that one
Okay,
Is that one,
that one gone? Or just, we're not?
off. I mean, it still exists, I'm just no longer on the board.
There's a ton of them.
I was
A lot of
listed as a,
So they have a network of like information sharing. And when I brought that to the council, and, it was early on as we were talking about, teamwork, and there were various meetings that folks were possibly interested in. I don't know how frequently those meetings are happening. I think maybe quarterly, maybe not at all, because there was some restructuring that happened as they went from an informal body to a more formal nonprofit. And then that board has been largely focused on getting the Caring Place and the funding for the Caring Place up and running. So a lot of what we talked about when this was added to the sheet has changed so much. I think it's out of date and good to just keep connected to as an area of interest, but not in a informal.
Somebody wants to take it off or leave it?
I think we should take it off.
Which one is it?
On the top of the page.
Oh, the homeless solutions code.
Yeah, because I heard the same thing, like their focus has really been that Caring Place facility in Oregon City, which obviously we want to be supportive of too.
I'd like to bring something up.
Yeah.
And I enjoy it. I don't mind continuing to do it. The only reason I'm bringing it up is because I know you work with DAM. The North Clackamas Chamber of Commerce, again, I'm happy with it. I enjoy it. But because you're a lot more involved with DAM and a lot of the other stuff you do with the businesses, do you want to take that one? You have the bandwidth to do that?
Yeah.
It's just on,
It was today.
yeah, it's today at noon. I can go.
Missed that one.
Yeah, I missed that one too. But it's on Zoom where you can meet at the chamber and then, because I also have at the same time, every Tuesday is my Rotary meetings. So usually I sacrifice the Rotary, well, and my job, but anyways. I do, like I said, I don't mind doing them, but I figure since you have, and you're the council liaison for that goal, the lane leader.
So
actually
is
might be-
that the the public policy team?
Yes.
Is that this one?
Yes.
So it says first Mondays, but is it Tuesdays?
It's the first Tuesday, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the first Tuesday of each month. It's a good meeting, but they do tend to lean a little bit. How we think.
Our values.
Yeah.
Just a heads up.
Yeah. I mean, like they came out in support of, they had Mark Meek there a couple months ago and they came out in support of the transportation bill
thing,
recall. I kind of called them on that. I'm like, the interests of most Milwaukee.
Yeah, I don't know if they ever took a position, but I know that they did hold that meeting to talk about it, and it seemed like they were more in favor of it than not.
And so on the public policy team, is there an expectation that you weigh in on
I do.
the votes?
I weigh in, yeah. I mean, since I've been there, we haven't really, they went through like the last session, they went through a lot of the bills that would affect them, and they were like, okay, do we have overall support for them? And they don't really take like a formal vote, but they do decide what to do.
Virtual too, right?
Both, yeah, they're hybrid.
Hybrid.
But yeah, like overall, they weren't in agree. They did not support the one about the unions of the workers who
Yeah.
strike, obviously. But if the majority of them do, then they're gonna most likely take that position. But Jay is awesome. Obviously, you work with Jay. I've had no issues with Jay. I've always been able to talk to him straightforward, and
Okay.
they kind of know where I stand. So
Since the short session is like lightning short, if they have, I mean, they probably won't even meet again, like, to discuss any of those legislative concepts, or I don't know, maybe they would, but,
they might in the
I feel
February
like if
meeting.
it's not something that we've discussed as our legislative priorities or bills that we're following, then I might provide my personal opinions, but I don't feel comfortable weighing in.
Yeah, I don't take a
saying
position.
anything about,
Like, if they ask my opinion, I'll tell them, but I
And
don't
then
take a position.
I just wouldn't vote at that point.
Yeah,
You all
I
feel comfortable with that?
vote on
And
the
I-
minutes.
I've been to their meeting a couple times and I agree, they rarely actually take a
Yeah.
formal vote.
It's more like, you guys want to support this, and if most people say yes, then they'll do it. Like, I stay out of it just because I know I'm not going to say anything until I bring it up here. That's why, like, I would write down the bills and let you guys know this is where they're standing, and I know it's in opposition of where we stand, so. And Jay knows where we stand on a lot of those things.
Okay.
We can send you, I get the emails, so I can send you
Yeah.
today's so that you just get the flavor of what.
Okay, yeah, that'd be helpful.
Yeah, and I'll let Jay know because I also did confront him about the press release. So I don't want him to think that I'm backing out because of that. Like, and I told him, like, it doesn't change how I feel about him, but.
And then he gets me.
So that's why I kind of want to be like, hey, man, like, just.
Do a nice hand up.
Yeah, warm hand up. I mean, it's better fitting. You got a business downtown, you worked with DAM, you do more with the local businesses, you're the lane leader. It just makes more sense for you to consolidate that, you know. And if it ever gets too much, I can jump back in and be your alternate. If you can't go to a meeting, let me know, I'll hop in on a.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I could say that too. You could the lead and alternate.
Yeah, I think that would be really helpful because we are open during, you know, that meeting time.
And then I'll tell Jay that too. I'll be like, hey, I'm gonna move as an alternate. I'm gonna put back up because she's the lane leader. I'll. Sweet.
Cool. Any other traits? Or changes? Or additions?
Just want to mention that for the bond advisory committee, I was not able to attend the meetings, but I spoke with Emma and she made sure that we had representation there. But I mean, I suspect since that's closed up, hopefully that'll come off the list anyway. It's the second from the last at the bottom there, the bond advisory committee.
The school district,
Yeah.
they're going for this fall, right? So they're.
Yeah. So I just want to make sure that that line comes off because that's concluded, but.
You're right. You're right. There was representation.
Are they going for a renewal or an increased rate?
I think it's a renewal bond.
Yeah, I think it is too. Yeah. I think we're like maintaining. All right. Yeah, other ones that people want to consider getting out of and throwing onto here?
Well, I had a question along the lines of groups like DAM. I mean, do we actually want to have a council representative that goes to those meetings?
How would you feel about that? Would that screw up the vibe? 'Cause I wouldn't want those business owners to not feel like they
Yeah.
can speak freely about it, so.
Right, yeah, I mean, that's why I kind of want to talk about it because like, I think that it is helpful to have someone who understands the city, but Sierra goes to those meetings and Sierra understands the city. And anything that Sierra doesn't understand or doesn't feel comfortable talking about, you know, I think she's skilled in saying, oh, like, let me look into that, and I'll get back to you. So I think that there's more of I think there's a stronger connection to that organization. I think they'd probably really appreciate having a council member
Really?
officially there because that it just makes things, you know, more formal for them. But I wouldn't want to necessarily be that, I don't know, I guess I'd have to, it's hard,
Yeah.
right?
Well,
Because
you're kind of in,
I'm there.
you kind of got feet in both sides.
Yeah, it's a little.
It feels like a conflict of interest for me to be
Yeah.
a member as a business owner and one of the constituents of that group essentially. And then also someone who would help navigate them. But that being said, like I think that we should have updates about what's happening at that group.
And
When do those
do they have, do I understand correctly that they have an executive committee that
Yeah.
meets more regularly and then they have their open meetings, which are open
Yep.
beyond
Correct.
business owners? I
Yep,
know some of the
exactly.
neighborhood people, stuff like that, right?
Yeah, those are quarterly. So they were monthly and now they're quarterly, but the steering committee meets monthly.
And are you suggesting a sitting rep on the steering committee or on the?
No,
quarterlies?
I think that,
It would mostly just be, so we have, the way the bylaws are, we just have, Sierra is on our steering committee as an ex officio member. I don't know that we could have like a formal appointee on any one of their boards, but
Yeah.
just someone there to to go listen.
And maybe it's that Sierra is
Just report
the
out.
point person, and then when there are things that should be reported out in committee, like maybe that would be you or Emma. I don't want to make Sierra come to like all of
I
our
would,
regular
yeah.
sessions.
At the very end of it.
Yeah.
When are those meetings? What are the jam meetings?
Monday, second Monday?
Yeah. Well, but it's quarterly now, so it's like
Okay.
not very often. But there are a lot of things that come out of the
Yeah.
work, that would be of interest. Like I think council should know what's happening with the Milwaukie passport and how successful that was. And that,
The
businesses,
downtown
like,
lighting,
we blew through all those passports.
yeah.
Did you? Wow.
Yes, in short order.
Awesome.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
It was like a week and a half. And yeah, so Andy was talking about getting, he had some that were going to the industrial area. But I think he's gonna redirect some more downtown. But we still get people coming in asking, and I've been sending them to City Hall.
Yeah, I was gonna say, there is a little stash out
Yeah.
here. Yeah. And
How can I put this? I think I hear the need is people want to hear more what's going on with them and like really understand like once a month and what the key highlights are. I would suggest, since we kind of have the scaffolding template for this through the CD report / CIP, we can get more meaty report outs each month in that. And so you get every second work session of the month. And if you want to talk about it at the council comments or.
I feel like that walks the line between, things that I would talk about being downtown versus things that I would talk about as being a member of meetings.
Cool.
That's all.
Okay. Great, we can do that. We'll get that done. Right in.
all right, anybody think of any committees we don't have? Anything they do that?
Yeah, we got some white
that's not
space, we got some white space on the third page.
That's right.
Quick, let's come up with a committee.
We might
Any
get
others
down
wanna
to
add to it?
pages, actually, with the cuts we've made. Yeah.
Can we have a baby naming committee?
No need. No need.
Any Multnomah County? You want us to?
Yeah.
Oregon City. They're doing that. We should have, every one of us should be assigned an NDA.
Yeah,
There you go.
that's a
You know,
good
Georgina had a
idea.
19th century spit on the
Well,
sidewalk.
I think we should all, I usually try to go to all the NDAs once a year. Haven't always managed that, but, I do think it's good for all of us to do that. But yeah, we could have assigned
I try to
NDAs.
go to mine, but it's the same time as West,
Oh,
like every time. And so my neighborhood
Yeah.
thinks I don't like them. It's not true.
Yeah.
I know.
You
One time
love water more than.
I know, I
your-
shunned West last time.
I know Robert's planning to hit the NDAs on parks, right?
I've been planning that for a year, hoping that I would have some definitive news.
So do you not want to add something, you want to formalize anything? at this point?
Yeah, it would be good for us to do a NDA tour.
That's a good goal.
I mean, obviously not
You
all of
mean-
us together,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
like, hey, you guys take the east side, we take the west side, whatever, flip flop. Rotate through, just so everybody gets to see all of us. Just adding more work. Like you have time, you know?
Everybody.
Remember me in 2028?
The bell just rang and you're asking about the homework assignment.
Well, thank you all. I'll take this. I'll send it around when it's.
All right.
Thank you all.
Nice job today, dude.
So we are adjourned until 6:30. You have 22 minutes for dinner.
Great, I'm gonna do his homework until then.
The blue jacket.
The reason I joined Greenwood